What Trump just did could lead to one of the largest bull runs in crypto history. And we have to address this, especially at this moment in this space where almost everyone is not even thinking bullish anymore. Almost everyone is thinking bearish. They think that we are going another leg lower. They think that the market is done. They think that the bull run top is in. And I think that this is actually pretty crazy to think about because, at this moment in this space, if you are focused on fundamentals, which I know a lot of you are, and if you guys have been following utility-based projects like XRP for quite some time, which I know, again, a lot of you have been, you already know that institutional grade adoption is picking up, regulations are becoming a reality, and the global adoption of crypto is skyrocketing, especially when we think about tokenization around stablecoins, things like that. So again, I do think that it's kind of crazy that people think that the top is in when we really didn't experience anything crazy at all. Even if we go back to November of 2024 into roughly like January of this year, yeah, there was some nice movement in the market, but for the most part, those moves were just based around I would say like a handful of altcoins. It wasn't like a significant amount. So again, at this moment, I don't think that the market is topped. I don't think that this market, is finished. I think that we are close to that bottoming point, which I did talk about in last night's video. But what we just got announced from Trump could change everything, and we have to address this. Now, let's start off by looking at the market cap of crypto. So we are at about roughly 3.5 trillion. We could see the nice bounce on the board here. I mean, going back to when I was, recording that video and I uploaded that video, we were at about roughly like 3.4 trillion or so. Since then, we added over $100 billion in market cap, which we love to see. And of course, yes, most of the market is having a slight bounce. It's not, anything too crazy. But looking at the total, right, I'm expecting us to maintain this previous high going all the way back to May. And if we can maintain this and if we could start to build a floor here, which by the way, we are on the 3-day here. This is what the daily looks like. Over the last couple of days, it has come to my attention that we are now witnessing more and more users having money frozen on exchanges like MEXC. This is a big issue, and it's an issue that plagues the crypto space. It's at a time where these exchanges are not fully regulated. It's a big issue. This is why when I've always mentioned if you wanted to hold your crypto in custody, it could be cold storage. It doesn't matter where you are holding it. Never hold it on these exchanges. Now, I will say ITrustCapital does offer a premium custody account, which provides you institutional grade custody. This is a US-based company with live client service and support. And you can buy and sell crypto 24/7 on this platform, which is a closed loop system that is extremely secure with low fees. We could also see here that ITrustCapital does provide you with every single thing that you possibly need when you are buying, selling, or holding crypto on their platform. If you guys do want to sign up with a premium custody account today, you guys are more so welcome to do so through my link that is down in the description below. If you deposit $1,000, you get a $100 funding bonus on top of it. And with that being said, let's jump back on into the video. Most of those daily candle closes were right around roughly like 3.32 trillion. This is right around the highs from going back to like the middle of May. But I'm more so looking at this on the 3-day structure, and we're starting to see RSI starting to pick back up, which is good. This is giving us a little bit more of a view at momentum picking up around just buy and demand and also volume in. And I do suspect that we could have a potential push to the upside here. But I'm looking at a few levels. Obviously, the first major level to flip here would be flipping the lows going back to roughly the beginning of August, the end of July. Now, that I'm not really dead set on being a key target. In fact, the main target that I'm looking at here is flipping the midline right around like 3.71 trillion. And then after that, we really kind of target that upper trend line, which should lead to a higher high on the 3-day structure compared to those highs going back to roughly the end of October. So I'm watching this closely, watching to see what happens here with the total. But, I do think that, seeing some more momentum on this chart will definitely be a big signal that we have bottomed and we're going to start to lead to, new highs being targeted on, some of these lower time frame structures and even higher time frame structures. And then, of course, with Bitcoin and XRP, if you guys did watch the midnight video, I slightly looked over just the charts. And, the main thing that we are looking at today on the 1 week is just maintaining this trend line. That's still going to be the focus. Obviously, I'll keep you guys posted, during like the midnight video, because that's when I'll probably do a new update after the close. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. But so far, these two have been looking pretty good on the weekly. I know that the market is selling off. I understand that we have, this major drop to the downside. However, it's not the first one that we have experienced so far this run. And I don't think that it's going to be the last one. So, again, this is just typical, normal, healthy price action. Same even goes with XRP. I know that we've had these nice dips down to like the low $2 range, and a lot of people are panicking. They're saying, oh, that's it. XRP's done. What? I thought XRP was going to this dollar amount, that dollar amount. It can't even hold this. And it's just, again, a lot of bearish noise right around like the lows of the market. Even when, Bitcoin and XRP back in 2022 were at massive lows. I mean, XRP during that time, if we're going all the way back to 2022, during this time, XRP was trading at about roughly 30 cents. Bitcoin was trading at about roughly like 15 to 20K. And everyone was so peak bearish. They thought we're going much lower. XRP is going down below, 20 cents. Bitcoin's going back down below 10K. And we already know what happened. So again, I'm not dead set on this market being extremely bearish at this moment, especially at a time where, the main things that have been holding us up is like, for example, the government shutdown. And then also outside of that, the whole tariff trade war talk. And almost all of that seems as though it's coming to a close. If you guys did see over on X, and I'm sure that everyone is probably talking about it today, the U.S. shutdown reaches a 39-day record in ACA subsidy and also filibuster standoff. So yeah, this is definitely a big one to focus on. It seems as though a lot of people were talking about, there potentially being a major meeting today with the Senate, addressing to see if they are going to end the shutdown or continue it. Obviously, this thing has stretched out well beyond what most people thought was going to be, the timeline. But the main thing that I'm really kind of looking at with this is just the fact that we should be starting to see this shutdown end pretty soon. I would argue that we'll probably have this shutdown ended, possibly within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And I know that that's being very, I would say that that's being conservative. I think that it could end, probably this week, if I'm being honest. But again, this is definitely a big holdup. I do think that everyone should be focused on the shutdown ending, because once this does end, we will start to see more updates around the SEC with altcoin ETFs, more discussions around crypto, and then also, just funding will start to resume, which means the money printer has to get turned on, because, the Fed right now, a lot of the money that is utilized to pay for, things that are currently shut down, a lot of that does come from just printing money. So again, liquidity has started to kind of constrict a bit during the shutdown, but once we start to see the shutdown end, we see things resume, the money printer will also resume, which liquidity will, prop up these markets a bit more. But also talking about that, there was a great post I did see over on X, and this is coming from Bitcoin Archive. We do see here that the last time the US government reopened after a shutdown, Bitcoin rallied more than 300% in 5 months. The US Senate will vote today to end the longest government shutdown in history. So yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not, fully focused on what's been happening with the Senate with the shutdown. But, if this is the case, if we are going to see that vote happen today, this is definitely going to be a big one to focus on, because again, this means this upcoming week, we could see this potentially get resolved. And if that is the case, yeah, it's very similar going all the way back to like 2019 leading into, 2020 and 2021. And we already know what happened, right? Bitcoin did skyrocket in value, and it could happen again. Now, I do want to talk about a few things here. Number one, let's address what Trump just did. So there was a few posts regarding this $2,000 payment from the tariff, dividend, essentially. I remember when this first got announced, everyone said, We don't know if this is going to be, happening. We don't know what's going to happen. This goes back to October, right? In October, that's when this got announced. We have here viral X post misrepresent Trump's old tariff dividend as new $2,000 payout. President Donald Trump's October 2025 proposal for $1,000 to $2,000 tariff-funded dividend payments to most Americans has been misrepresented on X as an imminent $2,000 check announcement. This is not the case, sparking widespread misinformation on November 9th. The original idea, discussed in an interview, aims to use import tariff revenues to reduce national debt and provide relief, though current collections stand at about roughly $215 billion annually, short of projections. Experts warn of inflation risk and legal challenges, with no official rollout confirmed by the White House. And again, when we look at this, a lot of people were saying, that's it, everyone's getting $2,000. It's fully approved. No, this is going to take some time to get approved. I don't think that it's going to get, approved within like the next week or anything like that. But I will say, if this does get approved, if this does happen, it's very similar to going back to COVID with stimulus. For anyone that didn't, for anyone that wasn't involved in this market back in 2020 to 2021, essentially with stimulus or any major payouts like this, this is all liquidity. Remember, it's all liquidity. Money printers get turned on. We start printing a ton of money. Even if it is coming from tariffs, right? It's still liquidity. So this will cause markets to go crazy, just like stimulus did, right? A lot of people put their stimulus checks in the stock market, into crypto. And again, that is all pushing the markets even higher. So if we start to see this become a reality, this is going to be fresh liquidity. This is going to be crazy to see. And again, we need to focus on these things happening. And if they do, get approved or not, because we do know that Trump did mention this back in October, and it's still a possibility today. And if we go all the way back to COVID and compare it to today's timeline, it does, I do think that it feels very similar. Ash Crypto posted this, and we have COVID crash, tariff crash. People said it's all over, and now we are so back. Now, again, everyone is so quick to call the bottom here. We have to be very cautious. But I will say this, almost every single time that these markets panic, we typically see, the markets chop a bit more, kind of shake more people out, and then we start to see a crazy reversal. That's what we want to see. We want to see that momentum before we get ahead of ourselves. But the main thing that we're focused on here is how similar the timeline is, right? Back in, 2020, we had the stimulus checks getting, discussed. And then all of a sudden we finally started to see them roll out. Right now, we're starting to see these $2,000 payouts with, tariffs getting talked about. We have yet to see it announced, but it's also at the same exact time that we just witnessed a crazy crash because of tariffs, very similar to the COVID crash. I do think that it's very similar. Obviously, things don't repeat, but they do rhyme. And I do think that this time around, we could start to see things rhyme. And also, don't forget that we have started to see some liquidity improvements across the board. Obviously, I do think that it really starts with the Fed. I've been addressing the Fed's reverse repo facility, which that thing has been almost completely drained, very similar back to 2020. We started to see that really spike back up, which, did mean fresh liquidity. It also meant that QE was beginning again. And that will cause the M2 supply to go insane. And even right now, if we're looking at the global money supply in terms of the M2, almost every single nation's M2 supply has started to skyrocket in 2025. China has definitely been a major leader here in this. They were one of like the first ones to start really turning the money printer back on. And the US has definitely started to catch up as well. If we're really kind of looking at this, just going back to, roughly the end of December, we were at about roughly $21.5 trillion. We're at about roughly $22.2 trillion. So we almost added a whole $1 trillion in terms of the US M2 supply since the beginning of the year. And I don't think that we are going to slow down here. In fact, I think that this is going to start to really grow even more. So we are definitely focused on this. I have been paying attention to, a few factors here. One of the biggest ones is definitely the government shutdown. I do think that that's going to be one of the, major ones to focus on at this moment, because once this does end, this is when everything starts to resume. This is when we start to see a lot of big updates happening with, payments resuming, the money printer starting up again. And it's also right around the same exact time that we're leading into roughly the middle of November, where we are also starting to see, some big updates from the SEC on ETF announcements and things like that. So again, I just think that right now everyone is a little bit panicked. They're still fearful of the markets. It's also at a time where I don't think that we should be fearful at all. In fact, I think that we should be looking at the facts here. And the facts is that most people right now are very bearish. Almost nobody wants to hear bullish news. They don't even want to, see someone posting anything bullish, because again, everyone at this moment is so beaten down in this market that they have just basically given up. You got to remember, most of these altcoins have yet to make a new high since going all the way back to January. So it's been about roughly 10 months now, and everyone is just a little bit frustrated. They're impatient, and I totally understand it, but it's also at a time where the market just had one of the largest wipeouts, but it's also around, the same time where we are starting to see institutional players openly talking about crypto, embracing crypto, addressing the future of crypto. And I don't think that now is the time to get shaken out, especially when we are looking at potential factors leading to increased liquidity, which will also support the markets pushing even higher. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord on the description below. And with that being said, guys, this is Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.